Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is the last day of November. And I am just like really kind of realizing right now how fast 2023 went by.
Yeah,
It's just like
Christmas is upon
zooming.
us.
Yeah.
I had a good year. I felt like 2023 was really good, and 2024 is going to be even better. That's how I
Oh
feel.
my, I without a doubt already know that's gonna be true. But it's just like 2023, we had so many changes. Like there was just so many changes here at our household. You know, Josie came to live with us full time. Walker moved in with his boyfriend. Jared quit his job. Like our business took off. We became like business partners. Like there's just been a lot of wins. You know,
Yeah,
Josie's finding out schools,
a
like
lot of tattoos this year.
a lot of tattoos this year. A lot of tattoos. I would say probably what, like at least 5 or 6 new tattoos this year. Um, it's just, it has been a year of like zero fucks given and just go
Yeah,
for it and not be as scared. I think in the past years, I've always been, I talk myself out of something or I would second guess it so much and then not do it. And like this year has just been like, fuck it, let's try it.
yeah, and you're being more mindful of your health this
Yes.
year.
Yes. I've lost 30 pounds. I mean, I have way more to go, but like
Stop
just creating,
drinking.
stop drinking 100 days yesterday, 100
Yeah,
days of
that's
sobriety
awesome.
yesterday.
I just saw on
Um,
Facebook someone else had posted that they had their 2-year anniversary. I was like, good for you.
Right. And it's like I don't even think about it anymore. So I mean, I wasn't a severe alcoholic. I'm not going to say that I wasn't an alcoholic, but I wasn't like a dependent every single day type of person. So I just kind of took it out for more dietary reasons and
Hmm.
brain fog reasons and just really just not wanting to feel how I always
Yeah,
felt in my
it will
40s
fuck your
after a
stomach
drink.
up all the
Oh
time too.
gosh, it just wasn't worth it. So, yeah, 2023 is wrapping up and I am one of those people that loves a fresh start. Like I love
Hmm.
Mondays. I love checklists. And so like knowing the first of the year is upon us, just kind of already starting to think about what do I want it to look like? You know, what
Hmm.
do I want my new habits to be? What do I want my new
Yeah,
routines to be?
we set goals for
Um,
ourselves. We have a goal list.
right, for our business and for each other and just maybe in 2024 we'll meet, you know, we'll actually like
Yeah,
meet in
maybe.
person. That would be
I
cool.
was telling her, you guys, I had this dream the other day that I met Sam like in person finally because we don't get to hang out in person, and it was like a movie. I was like running towards her like this, and she's a lot taller than me, and so I like jumped on her, like wrapped my arms and legs around her in the airport. So
Yep.
yeah, I'll probably cry like when I
I
start
know.
hanging out with you in person.
So maybe in 2024 is when we do like a little woman retreat and we meet up and invite, you know, followers to come meet up with us and we do that. So we'll have to, I think that's on our vision board is to have a retreat in 2024 for, you
Yes, a
know,
lot of
do all the
people
things that we
want
talk about.
us to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we could have, you know, all kinds of people there for self-care and, you know, teaching some things that we can't teach and things that you're interested in. So that's it's on the list for this year. But we come on here and we are going to talk about our TikToks of the week. Do you want to go first? Do you want to go first
Yeah.
on what yours is?
Yeah. And this is just one that I wanted to talk about because there's a lot of good stuff in here. And
Yeah.
this kind of stuff comes up with our clients a lot, like for group coaching when we get more details on what's going on in particular situations. And one thing that is so frustrating for a lot of people is that whether it's their attorney or what is it that people go like co-parenting counselor, right? Is that what one of our
Yes.
clients?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and even therapists sometimes, with their good intentions, these people don't quite realize what they're asking of our clients
Right.
when it comes to like navigating relationships with a high conflict person. They are giving them advice and direction as if this is like some normal person that they're dealing
Yes.
with, and they're just
100%.
not. They're not, and you can't act like they are. It's not going to work. And so there's
Right.
a couple of things that I want to talk about. This was in a TikTok video I had posted today too, is just some of the stuff you need to remember when you are dealing with a high conflict person. And these are things that maybe if you are in therapy, maybe your therapist is not talking about these things. I love therapy. Sam and I have both been in therapy several times. I think it's great. It fosters self-awareness. It helps you understand that you matter, your feelings, your thoughts, they matter, they're valid,
Right.
right? It's a place to be vulnerable. But none of that matters when you're dealing with a high conflict person. That person doesn't give a shit about your feelings, and vulnerability is not what you want to be showing them, right? So you have to treat them completely differently than you would anybody else. So here's some tips. I got 5 tips when you're divorcing a high conflict person. Number 1, you have to minimize contact. High conflict people thrive off of battle and drama. Right? Like their agenda is always to win. They want to create drama. So don't give them ammunition. You want to keep your conversations minimal, interact only when it's absolutely necessary. Yes. Try to keep that shit in writing so that you don't feel put on the spot, so that you have a moment to just take a breath and think about what you want to say. And then you can respond in a way that's really like a business transaction. Limit contact. And this is where we get pissed for our clients when they're forced to go into like co-parenting counseling with a high conflict person. Like that's going to do anything but stress you the fuck out, because this person is who they are. Being in counseling is not going to change anything. And if anything, you're forcing them to be like, to spend more time with this person that they need to be spending as little time with as possible. I get so frustrated for them.
I know.
And then, okay, so number 2, keep your feelings to yourself. When you're dealing with a high conflict person, usually narcissistic tendencies, they don't give a shit about you or your feelings or your thoughts. No. They don't even care about your kids' feelings. No. They don't care.
They're incapable. They are incapable because
the capacity.
The part in their brain had trauma in childhood and literally it stopped developing. Their emotional, like, intellect stopped. It's like no growth. So that you aren't crazy for thinking, man, this person's acting like a child and lashing out at me and yelling at me. And here I am crying and they're acting like they don't give a shit. Like they aren't even empathetic. They're not saying, are you okay? They're not reaching out to hug. They're not apologizing. It's because they don't literally physically in their brain don't give a fuck. No. They're incapable of caring. So you're not crazy for thinking that they're being cold or callous or an ass or what. It's literally what's physically wrong with them.
Yes. So. Yes. So stop telling that, like when you're frustrated because you want them to understand you, you want them to see things how you see them. You want them to validate how you feel and what you're thinking. None of that is going to happen. This is not a normal person that you're dealing with. You've got to lower your expectations or you're just going to be constantly disappointed and frustrated all the time. So keep your feelings to yourself. Keep it like a business transaction, only what's necessary. Third thing, plan for the worst. And I'm not somebody who would tell, I'm a very positive person. I like to have an optimistic viewpoint of things. But when you're dealing with a high conflict person, this is somebody who will probably try to drag you through the mud, will probably act like a victim, will probably always tell you that you're wrong and you're fucking up and that, and do that smear campaign and all of those things. You can't expect them to behave or speak or react in ways that you would, because that's not a rational person. They're not a reasonable person. You have to expect the worst from them.
I think this is where a lot of people get their feelings hurt, is because, you know, you have a mom that's like, oh, he'll send the picture, you know, he'll let me know if they lose that tooth. He'll show me what was in the book bag. You know, he won't, because he's incapable of doing what you do. And it goes both directions. You know, there's narcissistic moms out there just as much, but it's this idea that you're like, okay, this is what's best for the kids. So they'll do that. They will. No, they won't.
Yeah.
So like lower your expectations to like bottom ground level. And then by far, like out of nowhere, if they do something great, you're pleasantly surprised. Versus I have so many clients that call me and they're like, they don't show up for their kid. They're not doing this. And I'm like, what did you expect? This is who they were when you were married. Did you think a divorce was going to change their behavior? It's actually just going to accelerate it and make it worse. So you have to lower those expectations, and then you'll stop being so disappointed because it's expected. It's expected that they're ground level. Then that's only level that they're going to be at. Expect the worst.
Yes. Always anticipate that.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, never admit that you made a mistake. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be holding yourself accountable. But you need to save that shit for your journal, your therapist, your coach, your support group.
Yeah.
That is where you get vulnerable. That's where you admit your wrongdoings. If you are admitting to mistakes and admitting to your wrongdoings to your high conflict narcissist ex, they will use that against you. They will use that as proof that you are an incompetent, stupid person.
Forever. They will bring it up. I mean, I did stuff wrong early on in my divorce, I'll admit. Like and I mean wrong, like accidentally got the wrong weekend. And I would say, hey, we need to switch and he's like, that is your weekend. I was like, oh, my bad. Like I didn't do the every other correctly. Something so simple like that. And I would say, oh, my bad. I got that wrong. He would bring that shit up from then until 5 years later. It would still be like, oh, are you sure you have the right weekend? Because you know how you always fuck it up. I fucked that shit up one time in 2009 and I'm still hearing about it in 2016. Like anytime that I did something wrong and came forward and was like, oh, that's my fault. Oh, I did that. It could be something so fucking small. It was put on billboards all over town. Samantha's a fucking idiot. And it was just like, dude, if I wanted to point out every time you're wrong, holy shit, man, we wouldn't have enough time in the day, but I don't waste my energy. But yes, they will latch on to the smallest detail and make it this big grin and then tell your kids, you know, I don't know what's wrong with your mom. It must be because she's drinking so much. She can't even keep track of the weekends. No, dude, I just got off one day and it threw like not that big a deal, but it is a huge deal to them. Oh my God. It's so fucking exhausting. So exhausting.
Yes. So stop doing that. And then the last thing is stop trying to co-parent with a high conflict ex. You can't do it. A healthy co-parenting relationship takes two people that are invested in cooperating. Right. If it's a high conflict person, that is not who you're working with. You have to be honest with yourself. It's parallel parenting, which means what's happening at their house, whatever's going on, not your business. What's happening at your house, not their fucking business. I don't care how many texts they get asking about it or how many emails they send or how many phone calls it doesn't matter. You get to make the decisions in your house and then they get to make the decisions in their house. Obviously, as long as the children are safe and they're not at risk of anything crazy, but you have to stop expecting, again, lower your expectations, expecting that this person's going to cooperate with you.
Yeah.
They're not a normal person. They don't operate like you. And you really have to embrace that because as time goes on, you might think, oh, maybe they've changed. Maybe they've grown. Maybe they've seen the error of their ways. Maybe this new relationship has changed them. No, it has not. Not if this is a narcissist, not if this is truly a high conflict person. I'm not talking about people who turn into assholes through the divorce process because they're just stressed as fuck and really scared. I mean, that divorce definitely brings out the worst in people. That does not mean you're dealing with a high conflict person. There's a difference. But if you're really dealing with somebody who's high conflict, they're always going to be that way. And you always have to be strategic when you're navigating interactions with them.
So I've come up with what I call, like I teach our clients, workarounds. So, you know, for example, anytime that you want to talk to the other house, like you're like, oh, I'll just tell that other parent that they need to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, kiddo, thanks for letting me know. I'll just talk to that other parent and get no, that's not the direction you're going to go. You have to come up with workarounds. So if something's happening at that house and you're like, oh, I want that to stop, or they need to know that. No, what you have to do is teach your kid. You have to figure out a different way to make that happen. So they're workarounds. So I developed a course called the High Conflict Co-Parenting class that you guys have to get a hold of because it covers everything from how your ex is going to act, do workarounds, things in the public like school, extracurriculars, things with teachers, things inside your home. How do you make sure that your kids are going to tell you stuff if there's bad things happening? Because a high conflict parent is grooming them and coaching them to not tell you anything and that you're the devil. So you have to make sure you get a hold of that. So go to this link here and it'll direct you right to my page. And it's called the High Conflict Co-Parenting. And it's 10 hours of information, guys, because I've been doing this for 16 years.
16 years or some shit of information.
And it's just all of my children had a very good child psychologist. I was very, very blessed to have Barb in our life for 4 years. And she taught me, she knew who I was dealing with. She knew who my kids were dealing with. And she said, you're never going to change it, but here's what you can do. You can find workarounds. And that was her language, not mine. And I just stole it and I used it. But you got to find workarounds when you have a high conflict. And we had a story inside of our support group yesterday where there was this mom that said, you know, or maybe it was dad, I don't know, it was a parent that said, our daughter wants to use a washcloth during her shower at the other house, and they tell her no, that she should just use her hand. And I don't know if that story is 100%, but that's the gist of it. That the daughter's coming home saying, like, I don't feel clean, like I want to use a washcloth just like I do here. And the mom is like, how do I go to this house and tell them that they need to give her a washcloth? And I don't know about you guys, but either you're a washcloth house, or you're a loofah house, or you're a hand house. Like, that's just, it's the three options, right? When I was a child, it was a hand house. Now we're loofah people, and I change our loofah out all the time because I know people think those are disgusting. Every time I go to the store, I'm buying a new loofah.
By the way, side note, just learned this. Dude, I was using the same loofah for months and months. And one day I was like, Laura, Google how often we should be changing our loofahs.
It's often. It's often. Like mine like gets all like, it stays in the fairly same shape. Within like 2 days, Jared's is like, has like arms coming off of it. I don't know what he does with his loofah,
just, like,
but
pulls it apart.
I don't know what he's scrubbing, but I don't know. I don't want to know. So anyways, so this mom or this parent, I don't know if it was mom or dad in the post, but this parent was just like, how do I get a hold of the other house? And this is a prime example of, it's none of your business. Like, this is a situation for your daughter to just have to deal with not having a washcloth. I mean, this is what you say. You say, kiddo, I appreciate
her to advocate for herself.
Yes, exactly. So you would have the dialogue of whatever it is, and you empathize with your child, and you say, oh, kiddo, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that you asked me for help and guidance on this subject. You know, but honestly, what we do here is our standard. And I want you to point out maybe something else that we do different at our house. So the washcloth thing is one thing, but I'm sure at bedtime, you know, they don't do this and we do. So that's what we do. And then over here, they don't let you use a washcloth, but they probably let you do this, that I don't do this. So you're pointing out that she's always going to have differences at both homes. And you maybe give her 3 or 4 sentences that she could possibly go to the stepmom, go to the dad, go to the stepdad, I don't know who it was, and say, hey, I feel more comfortable using a washcloth to put the soap on. Can I bring one, or can you get me one? But if not, I completely understand. I just prefer to use washcloths. Versus if you teach your child to say, mom said you have to give me a washcloth. Right. Well, now that other house isn't going to fucking do that no matter what, because now it's coming from mom's mouth. So again, we're just teaching our kids to advocate for themselves, but also giving them the expectation that it won't happen. Right. That they're not going to do it. So kiddo, you can ask, but be ready for the response of no, just keep using your hand. Okay.
And I love the analogy that you use of how the way that you can kind of explain this to your kids is they do the same thing in school. If your kids are going to school, you might homeschool, but in school, from classroom to classroom, the rules are different. Usually the personality of the teacher, the expectations of the teacher, what they might let you do, what they might not let you do, from room to room, it varies. And so when you can kind of like use that when you're explaining, you know, things at this house, here's some things we allow and there's some things we don't. And at that house, it's going to be different.
Right. And there's always going to be something that pops up. You know, my daughter would come to me and say, can I spend the night at your house this weekend because there's something going on and dad won't let me? And I'm going to be honest, I failed my daughter early on, and I would switch those weekends. And some of you might not be thinking that's a failure, but all that did was make it harder for her later when she realized who he really was. And she couldn't switch those weekends because eventually my therapist said, stop switching the weekends for her. You're making it easy on her, and you're making it easy on him that he doesn't have to even say no to her, that he gets away with, yeah, on your weekend, she's busy and gone. And then on his weekend, he gets her because you've made the work and you went the effort and you did all these changes. And she never really truly has to feel what he's really like. You're postponing the inevitable, that she's eventually going to realize that he does not give a shit, that she wants to have these sleepovers or go to these things and do these things. So when I started saying no, it really hurt because I had to look at her and say, I'm going to say no to you, that I'm not going to switch him weekends from now on. And I know that sucks for you, that now you're going to have to go to him and he's probably going to tell you, no, you can't go. And you're going to have to sit on the couch and not go. But that's not my fault. It's not my fault because that's not my weekend. If it was my weekend, you could go. You could go to the event. You could have a great time. But I can't keep switching the schedule around to please him and you, and I lose out. So it's a no for me from now on. And she was pissed at me. She was pissed at me the first couple of times. And then I said, kiddo, if you want to get off the couch, you got to tell him you want to get off the couch and go with your friends. And if he still says no, again, that's on him and you. That has nothing to do with me. I would let you go, but that's on his weekend. I can't control that weekend. And eventually it just wore on her. One of the things I told my daughter, because she was a sophomore, is I said, you have 52 weekends every year, Joe. You have 52 weekends. And with this parent, you're not going to do much on those weekends. So you're going to cut half your weekends of your sophomore year in half. Half of them are going to be gone because you're going to be sitting on a couch not doing anything. You're going to do stuff with him, but you aren't going to see your friends. You're not going to have sleepovers. You're not going to be able to go to do dances, and half your weekends are gone. And if that's what you want, then stay and keep going. Cause she would always bitch. He doesn't. I'm like, it's out of my control, sis. Like, I have no bearing on that. Yeah. But that is the reality. You have to understand it. By luck of draw, if it falls on my weekend, absolutely fucking go. But if it doesn't, I can't do shit about it. And that's a hard thing to tell your kid, that, hey, you're going to miss out on a lot of fun shit because you have a parent that has unrealistic, rational thoughts about what a teenager should be doing. I think a lot of high conflict people, the pattern that I'm seeing in my ex-husband and along with a lot of other people, is they don't let their kid age up. They still think their kid is 6 when they're 16, and they're still thinking that sitting on the couch and watching a movie is what they want to be doing, when really what they want to be doing is in their room, playing on their phone, talking to their friends, going for a cruise, going to get coffee, going out to movies, hanging with all their friends. Like, that's what they want to be doing, but they still treat them like they're 6. So a lot of high conflict people don't let their kids age up. They still think that they're like, super small.
Them too.
Yeah.
Like Gina had said, it makes no sense why they can't do what's best for the kids. You're right. It does not make any sense, but that's because they're not a rational person. Their brains are quite literally wired differently than ours. They don't have the capacity to see beyond themselves. They are their own priority. The filter in which they view the world through is completely different than what most people view the world through.
Right. And we had another person that commented that there's a smear campaign going against him from the bio mom. And I just have to say, as somebody that had a smear campaign against me for 15 years, through my whole community of a small community of 3,000 people, everybody knew my story, but it didn't come from me. They knew his version of the story. And I didn't really give a fuck back then. And it was more or less like, I had to realize through therapy and through my children's therapist that I don't give a fuck about all these people. I really don't. If he wanted to smear my name, which he did a great fucking job of making himself look like the victim and me look like, this horrible, evil person that took his kids from him, even though we were doing 50-50. I had to let that go. And the only thing I could focus on was how my kids felt about me. As long as my kids knew that I was their person, their love language person, their hero, their supplier, their provider, their everyday when they were sick and I'm holding their hair back and I didn't give a shit what people, I didn't let myself get distracted by all that noise and be focusing. So many people call us and they're like, how do I stop that? How do I tell the community? You can't. When somebody is determined to wreck your life, you can't stop them. All you have to focus on then is yourself, making sure you're good, you're good here, and your stomach, and focus on your kids. That's it.
Yeah. Like what is in your control? That's what you have to do.
Exactly.
And a great exercise too, if you struggle with this, and this is in my course, I have a confidence course too to help you after divorce. But if you really struggle letting go of what you can't control, make a list. Take a few minutes, sit down, write out all of the things that you're worried about, that you're stressed about, that you have anxiety about. Write it all that shit down. Make a big fat list. Yep. And then go back and cross out all of the things you have no control over.
Yep.
And then see what's left on that list. And those are the things you want to put your energy into, because there's so many things that are outside of your control. And I know it hurts. It fucking hurts when you know that somebody is just blasting you and it's lies, because you don't want your image to be totally fucked up because somebody is just mad at you and wants to ruin your life. But at the end of the day, the people who are meant to be in your life will be. They will know the truth, or they will come and talk to you and ask you about your side because it matters to them and they care. The people who just listen to them, your ex and their side of the story, the one-sided story, and just buy it and decide to place judgment on you, then let them. Those are not your people.
Right. And I would be really cautious to let you know, as somebody that dealt with this for so long, that I was noticing that the town was hearing shit about me. And it took me 2 or 3 years, if not 4, to realize I thought that's all he was doing. No, what he was really doing was he was doing it at home with my kids. So I would be very apprehensive about worrying about the community and people, adults. I would be focused on, what do my kids think about me? What are they hearing? And how can I counter that? So if they're hearing that you're a lazy, fat piece of shit that drinks every day and hoes around, how am I showing them, not talking to them, how am I showing my kids that that shit's not true? Am I showing them that I show up for them every day? Am I showing them that I love them? Am I feeding their love language? Am I participating in their life? Am I validating their feelings? Am I letting them be heard? Am I hugging them every day? Am I supporting them in their endeavors every day? And not playing the same game of, that's not true. That's not true. What they said is not. Stop talking to your kids about the other parent. Just show your kids who the fuck you are. It is literally that simple. And that's coming from the child psychologist that my kids had. That's coming from my therapist. That's coming from my fucking real life, that I didn't go and go, well, I know your dad said this, but let me tell you about your dad. Let me tell you what I know about your dad. Let me show you the proof I have downstairs in the 17 fucking boxes that I have. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And everybody in my town thought, you have to be doing that. Like, why would you not be doing that? He's doing that. Why? I didn't have to. By him doing what he was doing, parading shit around town, smearing me around town, smearing me to my fucking kids, he made his own bed. He made his own bed. Did it take my kids a while to figure out? Absolutely. But they figured it out on their fucking own, came to me, said what they wanted to say, and now they live with me full time. He did it all on his own. I didn't have to rip on him. I didn't have to degrade him. I didn't have to do a smear campaign. And then when people slowly found out around my town, they would come to me and they'd say, why didn't you ever tell us? Why didn't you share that? It was none of your fucking business. And the fact that you believed his bullshit and participated in it shows who the fuck you are. Mm-hmm. So care less about the community, care more about your relationship with your children, because that's all you have. Because you may move, you may be in your home and never see people but your kids is all you got. Your kids are going to be the ones coming home for the holidays when they're 25, 35, 45. Not all these fucking community members. Who gives a fuck about the community? I care more about my kids wanting to be in my life and me and theirs for the rest of my life. That's what I care most about. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck who hears this. I care more about my kids, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So that's the reality of these high conflict people. I think you need to go back. You need to listen to Leah's notes about, especially for those of you that are in therapy, if your therapist is not like really specializing in high conflict personalities that you're going against, you might want to redirect your therapy sessions into somebody that does. Because if they're telling you, you know what, just be the bigger person, just go ahead and do that, extend the olive branch, fuck that shit. They don't know what they're talking about, because that's not how you deal with high conflict people. Okay. So we are trained in this type of environment. So please think about getting into the next chapter with us, because that is where we literally break down tips and tools and tricks on how to deal with high conflict. I have a course out about high conflict. She has a course out about confidence. Literally, you guys, we're the two best people. If you are dealing with high conflict, we have every tool you can imagine to get there faster, because both Leah and I have dealt with these type of people, but now we have given things for you to where you don't have to take as long as what we did. So we're going to end there. Please stay here. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with another episode right after this. But for the rest of you that are listening, if you've liked this episode, if you've resonated with this episode, I know you know somebody that is dealing with the same shit. Share this with them. Send this to them. Or here's a better one. Send it to your family so they understand that you're not crazy, that you are dealing with this, that this is normal, that this is what a lot of other people are dealing with. Because I know for me, a lot of people didn't understand who I was dealing with. So send this to somebody that is in your circle that would better explain from two of us, and they could hear it and go, holy shit, I had no idea that's what you were dealing with. And you can go, yep, here it is. This is why I'm struggling. Can you help me? All right. So until next time, you guys, like this episode, share it with somebody else. All right.